Good morning. It's time to study another psalm. This is one of my absolute favorite psalms. We're going to look today at Psalm 139. So let's go over here to our old friend, Bible Gateway, and we'll copy the psalm. There we go. And we'll transfer it here to a Word document. There we go. Let me make that a little bit bigger. And let me make this just a little bit bigger. There we go. And let me make this a lot bigger. Okay. So Psalm 139. As we first look at the psalm, we notice that it gets divided into basically into 5 sections. The first one runs through verse 6. The second one goes from 7 to 12. The third one goes from 13 to 18. The fourth one, a little bit shorter, 19 to 22. And then we end up with this gorgeous section that we're going to spend a lot more time on. Now, the entire reason for these divisions is subject matter, what each one talks about. So we're going to take a look at that here. And I'm going to add some space here. And the theme of the first 6 verses, Lord, you know me. Now look at everything that David says there. Oh Lord, you've examined my heart. You know everything about me. You know when I sit down or stand up. You know my thoughts, even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel, when I rest at home. You know everything I do. You know what I'm going to say even before I say it. You go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too great for me to understand. This last section here is kind of summarizes what David has been talking about. So the first section here, oh Lord, you know me. The second section, it's a different topic. It runs from 7 all the way down here to verse 12. And in this section, what David is talking about is, Lord, you've discovered me. Is that the same? That's weird. I don't know why it did that. Oh, well, supposedly it's the same. I'm gonna increase the size of it. Let's do it a little bit more too. So it looks the same as the other. That's my OCD coming out. Here again, I can never escape. I can never get away. If I go up to heaven, you're there. If I go down to the grave, you're there. If I ride the wings of the morning, if I dwell by the farthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me, your strength will support me. I could ask the darkness to hide me, the light around me to become night, but even in darkness, I cannot hide from you. To you, the night shines as bright as day. Darkness and light are the same to you. Again, David ends kind of summarizing things. Here, David presents a series of conditional statements. If I would do this, I still can't get away from you. I remember one of my teachers in seminary, John Oswald. He one morning he came in and he said, I traveled to Israel and attended a large gathering of biblical scholars, and most of them had a low view of scriptures, questioning scripture, and frankly, they raised questions that I couldn't answer. And he said, I was preparing to leave and I was pretty down. I was no longer so sure about what I was doing. I was no longer so sure that the Bible, a book written, he was an Old Testament scholar, a book written 3,000 and 4,000 years ago could have any meaning for me. Said I got on the airplane ready to go home, sat down. He said my habit was to calm myself, I would read scripture. He said, I opened scripture to Psalm 139. And the first verse I read was Psalm 139:9. If I ride the wings of the morning and go to the farthest oceans. He said, there I sat on an airplane getting ready to fly over the ocean on my way back home. And I thought, David had no clue about my life, and yet God did. And God spoke to him that morning, and he realized that what he was doing does matter. Okay, that's just a little extra. The third section here, David comes back and says, Lord, you have created me. Okay, we're going to go again to a lot larger. And then we'll jump down here as far as this is, add those spaces, and you made all the delicate inner parts of my body. You knit me together. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your creation, your workmanship is marvelous. You watched me as I was being formed, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. So you created me and planned me. Let's get a slightly different color here for the planning. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. How precious are your thoughts about me. They can't be numbered. I can't even count them. They outnumber the grain of the sand. And when I wake up, you're still with me. So here's David summarizing again. Now, this fourth section, I'm not absolutely sure I'm gonna I'm gonna say, Lord, you chose me, because I do want to keep the parallelism here of what God has done. But the point is, in this section, is there are two bodies. There are two areas. And one of those are the wicked, the murderers, your enemies. They blaspheme you. They hate you. They oppose you. And then at the end, David, come on, there we go. David summarizes, I hate them with total hatred. Your enemies are my enemies. That's kind of what David is saying here. There are two sides, the other side and our side, and I'm on our side, Lord. But here's where we end up. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you and lead me along the path of everlasting life. Okay, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to come here to Logos. And coming to Logos, I've already searched for a number of the keywords that we have here. The first is the word search me. And as we come down here to Psalm 139, do you see it there? We notice that it also occurs in 139:1. So let's take a look at that. 139:1 says, Lord, you have examined my heart and you know everything about me. David goes back to the very start. He says, Lord, you have searched me and you already know me. And so David opens himself to the Lord. He says to the Lord, search me. This word for search, elsewhere it occurs, as you can see here, 27 times in the Old Testament. And where it occurs, it's used to describe exploring, scouting, investigating, probing, examining, cross-examining, investigating. This word refers to God. It refers to God. What word should we use here? God examines us. He keeps his eye on us. Then David says, no. Okay, that's our second tab up here. If you'll notice, it occurs 942 times. Now, it does occur in Psalm 139:1, but it's repeated in that first section, 139, 1, 2, and 4. It occurs again in verse 14 that simply says that David knows what God has done. And then at the end, know my heart, know my anxious thoughts. Isn't that beautiful? What David says here at the end of Psalm 139, know my anxious thoughts. So here, God, after he examines us, he understands us. He knows what there is to know about us. This is by personal experience. You probably are aware that some of the early uses of the verb know in the Old Testament referred to sexual intimacy between Adam and Eve. Adam knew Eve and she bore a child. So this understanding is deep understanding. It's God truly getting to know us. Then David goes on. He says, test me. So here in the third, test me actually occurs very little. Oops, excuse me. I did not search that word. Let me go ahead and search that here. There we go. It occurs 28 times. God tests, proves, he puts me to the test. Just looking through the different passages that occur here, First Chronicles 29:17. I know, my God, that you yourself test the heart. In the book of Job, the Lord tests Job and tests his word. In the book of Psalms, he tests the hearts, he tests the children, tests the righteousness. The book of Proverbs, Yahweh will test hearts. Jeremiah, Zechariah, and Malachi also talk about testing. So here, God tests. Synonym for that is that he proves us. He knows our heart. He knows our anxious thoughts. It's interesting, the word for anxious thoughts is only twice in Scripture. It occurs here, and it also occurs in Psalm 19:9. When my troubled thoughts were many within me, your consolations cheered my soul. So God examines us, he understands us, he tests us. Then David asks him to point out anything in me that offends you. This verb occurs, it's still adding up the number of times. It is the verb see. And David is simply saying, see me. I think he is also saying, see, help me to see myself. point out anything in me that offends you. Let's see here. I need to change this to a different version. There we go. And there we go with Psalm 139. It was Logos's translation, which kind of modifies that last phrase. Interesting, but I'd rather get a more literal translation here. And the Holman Christian Study Bible does just that. See if there's any offensive way in me. Very interesting. The other two uses, it only occurs three times. The other two times, 1 Chronicles 4:9 says Jabez was more honorable than his brothers. His mother called him Jabez, saying, I bore him in pain. And then again in Isaiah 14:3, it'll happen on the day Yahweh gives you rest from your pain and turmoil and hard labor which you had to perform. So literally, David says here, see if there is painful ways in me, and then lead me. Let's take a look at that verb. The verb lead occurs 39 times. Make it look a little bit prettier. And leading here is guiding, bringing along. David says, guide me, and guide me along the path of everlasting life. Okay, back here. There it is. This is the word everlasting. It occurs 439 times. And the thing that I wanted to point out, our last study was Psalm 136. Every verse says his faithful love endures forever. That's the word that David uses here. Lead me in the forever path. Lead me in the path of your faithful love. So what is this psalm about? Let's go back and let's take a look at it. It's David saying, oh God, first of all, you know me. Secondly, God, you've discovered me. I can't hide anything from you. Thirdly, you created me and you actually planned me. Fourthly, I recognize this and I have aligned with you. I follow you. So now David, at the very end of this psalm, basically says, Lord, hold me accountable. Search me, examine me. Know my heart, know my thoughts, know my anxieties. Test me, prove me. When you've done that, see me and point out what you've found about me to me. See if there's anything in me that causes you pain. Then guide me and put me on your forever path, the path of your faithful love, your chesed, your mercy. Guide me, God. I love this psalm. It seems to summarize what David wanted. He recognized that he was not the type of man that God wanted him to be, but he wanted to be that man. And so he asked God, Lord, help me. I hope you enjoyed Psalm 139 today. I certainly did. We have just a few more Psalms. And then actually, I want to move on to a different book of the Bible to study. We'll see you next time.